Justin A.W. Blair here with another video about a Deep Space Nine novel, number 8 in the series, Antimatter, by Mr. John Vornholt. I trudge on. I continue on. I will not be stopped. I'm going to continue reading these books as a form of self-punishment, maybe? I'm not really sure. Some of these are really not very good. This is an example of a Deep Space Nine novel which starts out fairly strong in many ways. This is a heist novel. I'm not a huge fan of that subgenre, but it can work, and this works a little bit at first. Not so much the heist aspect of it, though that's not done particularly poorly in the beginning. I don't like long commercials in the middle of a YouTube video, so I'll get to the point quick. My own novel, written by me, Justin A.W. Blair, entitled The Haunt on the Island of Esmer, is out, available on Amazon. You can buy it in ebook or paperback format. It is inspired by Malazan, A Song of Ice and Fire, and The Black Company. Epic novels in that vein. Take a moment, check it out. I think the strongest part about this book is the foray into the Gamma Quadrant. Sisko and Dax are the two main characters, and they're really the central characters of this. Odo to a lesser degree, but Dax and Sisko are really made central to this book, more so than many of the other books, which tend to follow a kind of A plot, B plot structure, which is similar to most Star Trek episodes. What I mean by that is you'll have a major plot, the A plot, then you'll have something else going on in the episode or the book, the B plot, where we follow other characters, oftentimes minor characters, sometimes major characters with a minor role. This book is very heavily focused on Dax, Sisko, a little bit of Odo in there, and a little bit, of course, of the characters back on the station, but this book takes us away from the station. Like I said, it's set up as a heist book, a heist plot, and one of the main characteristics of that is you have different people trying to gain something valuable, and often you have double crossing, triple crossing, quadruple crossing, all that kind of thing. Like I said, it starts out pretty good. The main thing, though, the main strength of this book, before I get into some of the weaknesses, the main strength of the book is the alien species which they come across in their pursuit of antimatter, which is what the book is named after. There's been an antimatter hijacking, like I said, and so Dax and Sisko follow the ship in through the wormhole and end up on a planet that is really interesting. I'm actually not going to give it away, just in case someone actually hasn't read this and is for some reason watching a YouTube video about it and wants to read it. But it was an interesting alien species that they meet there and a culture. And the bad thing about the book is that it doesn't actually stick with that too much. I mean, I would say 2/3 of the book is in that setting, but the focus is drawn more towards the heist aspect and the Bajoran hijackers. And about 2/3 of the way in, this book really falls apart for me, and it was just really frustrating, especially the last third of the book. Things kind of go haywire. They're trying to build up tension and suspense, but again, we fall into this problem, which of course we know the main characters, Sisko, Dax, Odo, they're not going to die, and that goes to something I've spoken to in a lot of these videos, where if the stakes is life and death, but our main characters we're following are main characters, we know they're not going to die. And if the minor characters, which have a chance of actually suffering death, if they're not drawn to a degree to which we actually care about them, then we're kind of left just not really caring. This book does something else that many Deep Space Nine books, a few anyway, have done, and which, look, in a way it's almost retro, but it's weird Dax. I just wrote weird Dax horny stuff, but it's 90s. It's the 90s, and that happens. But anyway, I'll read you the I'll read you the first paragraph of chapter 2, which I have noted here in pen, LOL. Jadzia Dax pulled back her sleek dark hair and fastened the subdued ponytail with an ornate silver barrette. The style revealed the intricate pattern of small spots that ran along her hairline and down her slender neck and shoulders. She fastened her tunic, noticing her nicely formed breasts, which were impossible to hide in a Starfleet uniform. So it's just kind of funny to me that, uh, you know, she notices her own nicely formed breasts while putting on her Starfleet uniform. It's a little awkward. It's fine when done well. Dax fans be happy. This is not done particularly well. And it's done several times throughout the book. Like I said, the main thing about this is that we have this exploration of minor planets and societies in the Gamma Quadrant, which is something that I would have liked to have seen happen way more in Deep Space Nine. And we get a little bit of that. I liked the episode where the first one, where the aliens come through the wormhole and they play the game and I can't remember the name of the episode. It's a classic. But I like the episodes that have lower stakes where you're meeting alien cultures. There's a sci-fi plot element there, and they're fun. I think that's what Star Trek does best. We didn't get as much of that as I thought we should have in Deep Space Nine, because basically halfway through season 3 or 4, we really fall straight into the Dominion plot and the Dominion War that's going to take us all the way through the show. I actually liked some of those episodes in season 1 and 2 where you're just getting some of the strangeness of things that are happening in the Gamma Quadrant. And so when a book does that, I'm kind of interested. Out of all the books that I've read in the Deep Space Nine series now, which is 8, and for some reason I continue. I'm already reading 9 right now. This is one of the most uneven books, though I've seen this a lot in Star Trek Deep Space Nine books, and I think that it probably has to do with, I assume the editing is relatively rushed. Um, it's uneven. It actually starts really pretty strong and then just does not come through. And again, part of that I think is just because there are constraints on writing a book series based on a television series, and one of those major constraints is we know more or less the major characters, nothing's going to happen to them. And I think I don't understand why writers didn't realize that and then try to shift their books into storylines that wouldn't require that wouldn't have this false tension of thinking something really bad is going to happen to major characters. There's other stories that could be pursued that would be more interesting to me. Um, you know, that's my opinion. I think that holds true for Deep Space Nine as a series and Star Trek, really, in a lot of ways. But that's true for a lot of television series. Though, granted, we do lose a major character in Deep Space Nine in either the last season or the penultimate season. I'm not sure which. So look, there's some minor quibbles. They don't scan for anything. When Sisko and Dax get to this planet where they've chased these hijackers, they don't scan the planet to figure out if there's anyone there or a culture that they're going to interrupt by scanning, by transporting down and revealing themselves potentially, when they transport down. I thought that didn't make a lot of sense, but it's a small thing. I would think with the Prime Directive, you would be careful about where you're just transporting yourself. Another small thing on page 42, Chief O'Brien is saying maybe he'll go with Sisko and Dax, and he says, no, if we're delayed, we would need at least one ranking Federation officer here. I suppose referring to O'Brien, but my understanding, and again, a minor quibble, but we like to quibble here as we read through Star Trek things. O'Brien is not an officer, from what I understand, right? He's an enlisted man, so that doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense that Kira, even though she may be an officer, she's not in Starfleet or the Federation, but O'Brien's not an officer. I think Bashir would be an officer Though he's a medical doctor, and he would be a Federation. He would be the ranking officer there. I'm not really sure. Sisko, he looked around at his command officers, many of whom he was still getting to know. He certainly didn't know any of them well enough to send them on a suicide mission. Well, where are we at? I mean, this is book 8 in the series. Let's see, this was November 1994. So yeah, I mean, I suppose it was fairly early on. There's a few minor things like that, very minor. That's really not the reason that I really can't endorse this book that much. Look, if you're set on reading all these, like for some reason inexplicably I've set my a goal for myself to do. Is it the worst book? No, probably not, but it's in that lower tier. One last thing, and this is towards the end of the book. The inevitability of this is obviously weapon systems are down. They're in a difficult position. They've got these canisters of antimatter. Can you guess, as a Star Trek fan, dear listener, dear viewer, can you guess the solution they come up with to weaponize the antimatter on board when other weapons are down? I bet you can. But I will leave that for you to read. Antimatter, John Vornholt. You liked him some Dax. Liked him a little bit of Dax. Nothing wrong with that. Healthy. Justin A.W. Blair. Like, subscribe. Join me next time. We'll see you then.